State Superintendent Ryan Walters says school districts now have to provide free lunches for all students or face the consequences. We have the story here in just a second, but before I do, go ahead and leave a like, leave a follow on whatever platform that you're watching this on. It takes just a second, really helps out the channel, help me keep the lights on, help me keep food on the table, all that good stuff. Now that we got that out of the way, we have the headline here from KFOR News. Walters slammed for unfunded school lunch mandate. Critics say he has no authority to enforce. Well, we're going to talk about all that, but before I do, I want to actually show you the video from the horse's mouth. A minute and a half video that Ryan Walters posted to his X account. Let's go ahead and we're just going to let that play right now.
Today I'm excited to announce that Oklahoma will be the first state in the nation to require education funds to go from administrator and bureaucrats' pockets to school lunches. For far too long, we have seen public schools take taxpayer dollars that are there for students and continue to grow administrative costs, then turning around and charging parents for school lunches. Listen, parents, you're already triple taxed for kids' lunches. Number one, federal dollars go to the school lunch program. Okay? Number two, local taxes go to the school lunch program. And then schools turn around and send you a bill. Again, you're being triple taxed as parents. And we're not going to tolerate it any longer in Oklahoma. Today I'm giving the directive for every school in the state of Oklahoma, starting this school year, to cover all of your school lunch costs at school. Again, taxpayers, we have got to get away from growing government, growing bureaucracy, growing administrators. We have too many administrators in schools. We need less administrators and more of the taxpayer dollars to go to kids directly. And we're excited to be the first state in the country to do that. Your kids are going to have more nutritious meals. We're going to have more on that to come. So parents, your kids are going to get nutritious food. And we are not going to allow school districts to continue to gorge you of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. We're going to make sure that those are covered this year.
Fair point. My personal opinion, I have a rather extreme opinion when it comes to public education. I think that the Department of Education should be abolished on the federal and on the state level. I think parents should be in charge of raising their own kids. I understand that that's not going to happen in my lifetime, probably. So we have to roll with what we got. So since we have state-funded public education, yeah, why wouldn't we take money from these bigwig salaries? And I'd much rather these salaries go towards providing a good, healthy lunch for some kiddos, 100%. And he has a great point. He's like, you're paying a federal tax, you're paying a state tax for the purpose of providing education to either your kids or the community's kids, and in hopes of providing a more robust workforce and populace. Why is it that when I've paid those two taxes for a specific purpose, that whenever the service is being provided for me, all of a sudden I'm getting hit with a bill? It makes no sense. And what he's saying is, well, your administrative costs have, exploded in the last couple of years. Maybe if you wouldn't pay your administrators an exorbitant salary, perhaps you'd have the funds in order to provide a good, healthy lunch for some kids. And let's talk about that, because a lot of you may not understand the severity of how much some of these people are getting paid. We have here from the Connecticut Post, where they report that Levi David ended up making, from the he works somewhere in the school administration for Connecticut, was paid a $336,000 salary. I bet y'all wish you made that kind of money, but here's the crazy part: is this is the lowest number I'm going to show you today. Let's move over to the Houston Chronicle, where a gentleman by the name of Mike Miles, a superintendent of a Houston school district, makes a salary of over $500,000 every year. We pay this dude to educate the kids of Houston. Seems a little exorbitant to me. And you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, that's Texas, that's Connecticut, that's not Oklahoma. Well, folks, I got receipts from Oklahoma too. We have here from the OCPA, Let me just read this headline real quick. The Oklahoma City District provided $419,000 in total compensation to its superintendent and devoted only 48% of funding to instruction last year. Even though per student funding in Oklahoma City is well above the state average, only 18.3% of students in the Oklahoma City District met or exceeded grade level standards on state testing in 2023 to 2024. So this person is making just shy of $500,000 a year, and only 48% of funding actually makes it to the classroom. So if you give them a $100 bill, only $48 are making it to the classroom. Where does the other $52 go? Administrative costs. In other words, to line this dude's pocket and this dude's friend's pocket, more than likely. And we're doing all of that, and only this says 18.3. Let's be generous. Only 19% of the kiddos in Oklahoma City either meet the bare minimum, which I'm sure the bare minimum isn't as high as it probably should. They're either only 18 to 19% are meeting the bare minimum or exceeding. The story is the exact same thing in our other major city, Tulsa. In Tulsa, the superintendent was paid $379,000, even as just 47% of total school funding went to instruction. Tulsa's per student funding is also above the state average. Just 18.8% of Tulsa students met or exceeded grade level standards of state testing in 2023-2024. So it's the exact same story in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Clearly, it's not a money problem. Well, it's a money problem in the sense that all these bigwigs are making way too much money. But it is a money problem in the sense that clearly, if they're taking in way much more money than what is recommended for these school districts to take in, but only 18% of the kids are functioning at a bare minimum standard. Well, I don't think throwing more money at the situation is the problem. You want, my opinion? I think we need to trim the fat, and we need to quit with this addiction to have, every institution, whether it be free market or government, it's a manager who manages a manager who manages a manager who manages a manager. It's ridiculous, and it's a lot worse in government than it is in the private sector. But 100% that we have this problem. We have this Karenocracy, this manager bureaucracy, where we have to have all these people in charge of an operation where you would probably only need a fraction, if any, of these people to be managing anyone at all. It's absolutely insane. We can go over here. Actually, this is irrelevant. Either way. So now that you got the facts, you heard what Ryan Walters said from his own post on social media. We have the numbers given to you. Let's go ahead and let's react to this video from KFOR News, a pretty left-wing news media outlet here in Oklahoma.
State Superintendent Ryan Walters declaring he's found a solution to keep children from going hungry while they're at school by giving them all free lunch.
But there's just one thing here. He's demanding school districts find the money to do it in their already paper-thin budgets. News 4's Spencer Humphrey picks it up from here. Spencer?
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Everybody would be behind requiring school districts to give all students free lunches. But
yeah, this is actually something that the Democrats have been shouting to the heavens for quite a long time. But as you're going to see, all of a sudden, because it's coming from the mouth of Ryan Walters, well, suddenly now we're not so on board with the idea. Of course, their solution to the problem would be just dump more money into the school districts. Let's just, if instead of cutting fat, instead of firing people that need to be fired, which we can't, thank you to the teachers unions for that. Let's just dump more money in the system. Surely it won't be the same situation where only 48%, only 47% of that money is actually going to make its way into the classroom, or in this case, the cafeteria.
Districts we're hearing from say doing it without any extra funding is simply not possible, and lawmakers say mandating it with threats of punishment for non-compliance is something Ryan Walters should know he does not have the power to do.
Full stop. He does, as the state superintendent, he 100% has the authority to withhold funding from the state. That would be the most obvious thing that would fall under his authority to do.
Today I'm excited to announce
Another attention-grabbing video from State Superintendent Ryan Walters.
you're being triple taxed as parents, and we're not going to tolerate it any longer in Oklahoma.
Yet again, leaving some folks saying just one thing.
I don't think he's serious. I think this is political theater.
In that
Of course, it's political theater. Anything that ever happens politically is generally for the theater of it. But I don't care. I mean, free lunches for kids while we're already paying exorbitant taxes to provide education for kids seems reasonable, and I don't care if he's doing it again on TV. It's also just speculation. He has no proof for any of that. But either way, I wouldn't really care.
video and in an email Walters sent Oklahoma parents, he declared Oklahoma schools have a problem.
For far too long, we have seen public schools take taxpayer dollars that are there for students and continue to grow administrative costs, then turning around and charging parents for school lunches.
Claiming,
and we just showed you the numbers on that. Remember, we have people in Oklahoma making close to $500,000 in annual salary, and only 48% of every dollar spent makes its way into the classroom. 18% of these kiddos are functioning at the minimum requirements for the state.
without citing specific examples, that Oklahoma school districts are taking money away from things like school lunch programs in order to pay administrators heftier salaries.
Okay, well, by definition, all these schools have a set budget. So by definition, every dollar that you choose to pay yourself is a dollar that you're taking away from kids. So it's not an unfounded claim. It's just factual reality.
We need less administrators and more of the taxpayer dollars to go to kids directly.
But he had a solution.
Today I'm giving the directive for every school in the state of Oklahoma, starting this school year, to cover all of your school lunch costs at school.
Declaring by the school year starting next month, public school districts must start giving all students free lunches without any increase in funding to go along.
Real quick, I just want to touch on this. What is this lunch that this looks like a breakfast? Looks like they're doing like a chicken and waffles thing. We could do a lot better for providing a healthy, nutritious Maha meal to our Oklahoma kiddos. We have here some sugary waffle that's going to be full of empty carbs. We have a Smucker syrup that is just going to be high fructose corn syrup. We have some chicken nuggets, which are probably just going to be fried in seed oils. I have no idea what this is, but it looks processed to hell. To all hell. We could do a lot better in serving a more nutritious breakfast to our kids. A little bit off topic, but I just wanted to say my piece on that.
Increase in funding to go along with it. Warning districts, if they don't comply, he and the State Board of Education would rid them of all state funding, strip districts of their accreditation, or even revoke administrators' certificates.
Good. The reaction from they're saying this as like oh my God, look at what he's willing to do. Good. All of these people need personal accountability. They have no incentive to pay themselves less in order to give the kids a better meal. What would be the benefit in that? There is no benefit unless you do this, because the downside is, okay, well, if I'm making $500,000 a year and I reduce my salary 50%, I lose $250,000 a year, which first, folks, they say that the living wage in Oklahoma is around $44,000. So let's just pay these people over a six-figure. Let's just pay them over $100,000 and call it a day. I don't think that these people really need or deserve much more than that. But getting back to what I was saying, they're not going to vote to pay themselves less money. You have to have some form of repercussion. You have to have some sort of personal accountability and say, okay, you're not going to do this, you're out, goodbye. So this is a good thing.
We have got to get away from growing government, growing bureaucracy, growing administrators.
And those are words State Senator Mark Mann finds
Hypocritical and Typical Ryan Walters.
Hypocritical, he says, in light of reports we've brought you uncovering records of numerous 5, even 6-figure bonuses Walters has paid his own OSDE administrative staff, many of whom are out-of-state political consultants already commanding 6-figure base salaries. Also pointing out, Walters supported Governor Stitt's move to reject federal funding to provide kids free school lunches in the summer. And Mann, who served 7 years on the Oklahoma City School Board, says the idea that
I don't know what they're talking about. I'm inclined not to trust KFOR News because they've ruined their reputation as liars, as people who will bend the truth, as far left Democrats. If what they're saying has any modesty of truth to it, I mean, yeah, absolutely, that should be called out. But just because bad thing happened over here doesn't mean that we can't have good thing over here. We can address both things, but separately. And also, look, this is the Oklahoma City Council building, I believe is what they're saying. Look how immaculate this building is. How much do we think this building is worth? It's got to be like $10-15 million alone. That I say we can sell this building to pay for all the school lunches, and all the city council members can go do their work at like an Arby's lobby or something.
Districts can simply shift funds from one thing to another is just not how this works.
All the federal money
Well, says you, bro.
has strings attached, goes to certain programs. Most of your local ad valorem dollars go to maintain the buildings and pay heat and air and put gas in buses. Schools do not run on a huge surplus budget that they can just say, okay, we'll take this over and do it.
As for
So what he's saying is, well, we can't just dip into our budget to pay for these school lunches because we're already at a paper thin budget. You know, we got paid for the air conditioning, we got to pay for the buses, the diesel that goes in the buses, and all these sort of things. But remind you, we went through the numbers. These people are paying exorbitant prices for their salaries. But if I'm being completely honest with you, no, if you decrease the salary even by 75% of all these people, you're probably still not going to come up with the same amount of money that it would be required to give school lunches for free to all these kiddos. But it certainly helps, and you would have to act. Here's the thing: all these institutions, they need to be run like businesses, because at the end of the day, they are businesses. And they should be more fiscally responsible with how many people are they hiring? Do they have 5 teachers doing the job that one teacher could be doing? Maybe they could take a look at some of the contracts for the suppliers for buses, for diesel, for where they're getting the food for these school lunches, and actually negotiate and haggle on the price. Because typically when it comes to government contracts, there's not a whole lot of haggling that goes on, which isn't really good if you're trying to be cost efficient. So he's right. Simply, you could zero out the salaries of all these people. It probably wouldn't be enough if you only went that far. But you can also make more cost-cutting efforts in combination with reducing the salaries of some of these people that are way overpaid, and you could definitely find the money to give these kids a free lunch.
admin costs, he says on average they make up anywhere from 2 to 7% of an Oklahoma school district's total budget, and state law already prevents districts from ballooning them too big.
Yeah, districts can't go over a certain percentage for administrative costs, and so there's just nowhere to really pull the money from.
In a letter to parents Monday, Bixby Public Schools warned Walters' order would require catastrophic measures impacting all programming, staffing, and class sizes, saying it would cost that district alone $5 million each year in money it doesn't have.
So this is a textbook emotional manipulation argument. So, and you're going to hear this from every school, every Democrat, most of the Republicans in the House, because all Republicans in the state of Oklahoma are squishy rhinos. You're going to hear this from everyone. Is this the same emotional argument? Think of the children. You're hurting the children. They're going to come at you and they're going to say, in order to meet these costs, we're going to have to cut the wrestling team. In order to meet these costs, we're not going to be able to provide air conditioning for the kids. And they're going to hit you with 1,000,001 different things, but they're never going to talk about the fact that the administrative bureaucracy of these institutions are overbloated and overpaid.
if they were to comply with Walters' rules. And Mann says that's a pretty big if.
He has no authority to require any school district to spend money other than what's already been approved by the legislature.
This is a ho's mad situation. In this case, he's the hoe and he is very mad. He's just talking out of his rear end right now. 100% Ryan Walters has the authority to do whatever he wants regarding school districts. He is the state superintendent as voted in by the people of Oklahoma. So this dude is just salty.
Something he says should be basic knowledge for any state superintendent.
If it was about feeding kids, he could have started this when he first got in office. He could have come to the legislature and asked for additional funding to help cover the cost of these meals.
Yeah, but we don't want additional funding. We want less funding. Again, we're being taxed federally. We're being taxed by the state for the purpose of many purposes, but one of those big purposes is education. So why am I still receiving a bill at the end of the year? It's absolutely insane. No, we don't want more funding. Make it work with a completely over bloated budget that you have already.
I think this is just a political trick to try to get on television and in the papers.
And someone whose voice we really hoped to include in this report was State Superintendent Ryan Walters. We reached out to his office hoping to hear what he has to say in response to the things Mann brought up, but we did not hear back.
That's because KFOR are disingenuous truth benders who are radical Democrats that never miss an opportunity to slander Ryan Walters, the only Republican, in my opinion, on the state level that's well known that is actually doing something to fight back in the culture war. That's why he doesn't want to talk to you, is because you're disingenuous.
We did hear from was the group Hunger Free Oklahoma, who say in part, quote, while we share the end goal, we do not agree it can be achieved by this proposed approach.
We like this, but because it's coming out of Ryan Walters' mouth, we hate it. This is textbook cult behavior from the far left. No matter how good it is, we can't give any Republicans a win because Republican bad. It literally that's the thought process. Republican bad. Don't let them get a win, no matter what. This is just silly. This is kid behavior. This is cult behavior. This is what's more to be said.
Approach, adding the best path they see to achieving universal free lunches here in Oklahoma is through state lawmakers giving schools the funding for it.
More money, and more friggin' money. Well, you're not going to get the money, and you should have way less money, and now you got to make it work. Otherwise, you're going to lose your teacher's licenses, your accreditation. I say bravo, Ryan Walters. Keep on at it. That's going to do it for this video today. If you like what you saw, go ahead and leave a like, leave a follow on whatever platform that you're watching this on. And with that being the end of it, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So thank you and have a good one.